Kicks Ritter to the end zone, looking for Pierce. Did he hang on? Yes. Touchdown. Made the back as I've been around. Here he goes again. Busts free. Jerome Ford down the sideline. Foot race. House call. Touchdown. 79 yards. Big run in the Peach Bowl. This is a big one too. And it's going to go all the way to the house on the first play of the scrimmage.
Bearcat Blitz. Welcome into another week on the Believe Network. I'm your host, Russ Seltman, joined shortly by my co-host, Neil Meyer, bringing you all the Cincinnati Bearcats athletics, news, notes, and analysis. Twice a week on the Believe Network, we are presented by FanDuel Sportsbook. Make them your choice for a Super Bowl bet this weekend. We'll tell you about those odds a little bit later in the show. And you can also make them your choice to bet on the Big 12 Conference regular season title winner for this season, coming down the home stretch of the campaign. About a month left in the season for everybody in the Big 12. Arizona, prohibitive favorites right now on the FanDuel Sportsbook at minus 220, and two other teams with less than 10-1 odds hot on their heels at Houston at plus 340 and Iowa State at plus 850. The Bearcats, you can't even burn your money into the gallows. Burn your money into the chimney. Better use of phrase there. They don't even have odds anymore. They statistically cannot win the Big 12. That has already been decided. We'll get to another reason why they statistically cannot win the Big 12 on today's show, as they lost another game to Houston over the weekend. A few days off to get healthy. Wes Miller and Jizzle James talked to the media on Tuesday before Neil and I recorded today's show. We'll talk about those comments. We'll get to some financial figures as well for the Cincinnati Bearcats athletics overall entity, record financial figures at that. We'll tell you why on this episode of Bearcat Blitz on the Believe Network. Back after these messages. Bring Neil Meyer in now from the front office, news.com. And I am, of course, Russ Seltman from Cincinnati Bearcats on SI. Neil, they couldn't, we tried to give them some credit, keep it under 15-point deficit here. At least I did. I can't remember exactly how much you predicted Houston to beat Cincinnati by, but not much doubt at all. Double-digit victories for Houston in both halves as they beat the Bearcats 76-54. UC has Mustafa Cham go down late in the second half, Neil, and it was curtains from then on out. You're playing a bunch of lineups that you haven't played much all season together, in-game action, and you didn't get anything scoring-wise much from Baba Miller. His lowest point total of the season, 1 for 8 shooting, only 2 Bearcats in double figures. Tip of the cap to Keyshawn Tillery, putting up a career-high 14 points against one of the tougher opponents on Cincinnati's schedule this season. But, Neil, even with the 10 threes, it did not matter because the Bearcats turned the ball over 19 times and only made 8 free throws.
Yeah, absolutely, Russ. So when you're looking down at this matchup heading into it, you and I both said that Cincinnati was only going to win this game if they were able to keep that turnover margin under 10 in this matchup like they were able to do versus Baylor. And they simply were unable to do that. And when you look down at what really caused a lot of pressure for Cincinnati was, well, it was your point guards combining for 13 of those 19 turnovers. So obviously not what you want to expect. It wasn't Day Thomas' best game of his Bearcat career as he led the way with 6 turnovers, which is so uncharacteristic for Day Thomas. But overall, they did what they needed to do versus Houston, and that was shut down Kingston Flemings. But it was the other guys who beat you. Once Chris Sinak made that run in the first half,
once he hit 2 threes, Neil, I was like, it's over.
Yep.
It's cooked. There is no chance UC is pulling off an upset in a game where Chris Sinak hits multiple threes.
And I was just about to say that. And
we probably had the same exact thought in the same moment when that hit the twine.
Yep, right.
Like, yep. Get the recap ready. It's done.
Right when he came down and hit that, what was it, 3 threes to go up to, I think it was that 10-point lead early or late in the first half. You were like, yep, all right, Kingston Fleming's not having his day, but don't worry, our other top 50 or top 25 recruit, Chris Sinak will come in and beat you. And that was a
And
guy
then
who was,
Fleming's, he recognized he wasn't having a good day, went into assist mode 6 times, and showed why he's one of the best freshmen in the country.
yeah. And Cincinnati just had no answer for Houston. I mean, when you look down, you see Sinak finished with 13. I believe 10 of those came in the first half. Uzan finished with 16. Emmanuel Sharp just 4 of 12 from the field, but he finished with 13. Isaiah Harwell, 13. So for Cincinnati, they just had no answer for Houston. And when Mustafa Cham went down, that was kind of the icing on the cake for Houston to take advantage in this one because Cincinnati was so undersized. I mean, Tyler McKinley's playing banged up, and then Mustafa goes down. You ask Tyler McKinley to put a little bit more minutes on his plate despite being pretty banged up and not 100%. And he probably won't be 100% the rest of the year. He's gutting it out, but Russ, he hasn't been 100% since December. So on top of that, you got to give extended minutes to Jalen Celestine. He plays a 30-minute game.
Best game by a
Kirk Brees,
Bearcat on Saturday. Shout out to Celestine. It's
Kirk
unfortunate,
Brees,
Neil. I think he's I think the Bearcats are 1-4 in games where Jalen scores 10 plus points this season. He has just
and
not played his best when he's played his best when the Bearcats have played their worst, I should say.
yeah, and he's really been like a bright spot for Cincinnati the last 5 games. I believe he's shooting close to 42% from three since Big 12 play started or over the last 6 games or so. But for Cincinnati, I mean, 1 of 8 from Baba Miller. That's so uncharacteristic for Baba, but that was Houston sending a double team every time he touched the ball in the front court. And Cincinnati was just unable to knock down shots. Now, I did like to see the game that Keyshawn Tillery had for Cincinnati. I was very impressed with how he's been able to develop over the recent weeks. I mean, a career high 14 points, 4 of 7 from the field. Russ, his development over the recent weeks and recent month or so is huge for Cincinnati, assuming that they're able to keep him next season with all the haywire in college basketball as well.
Yeah, really good to see Keyshawn Tillery, and just that's kind of what we're looking for. It's just, the season is what it is. You're 11-11 overall. It's only the only path to making the tournament is a surprise run, a la Georgetown a couple of years ago in your conference tournament. So just taking the low-hanging positive fruit where we can pluck it, and that was one right there with Keyshawn Tillery. Love to keep him in a Bearcat uniform, continuing his career here, moving on next season. We'll see if that ends up happening in the in a murky future for the Cincinnati Bearcats basketball team after the season wraps up in the beginning of March. But Neil, not murky on the injury side of things. We got some clarity there from Wes Miller this earlier this morning, actually on Tuesday, and we'll touch on that in just a moment before we get to the athletics revenue announcement. Well, not announcement, it was reported by the Cincinnati Business Courier. Good job by Steve Watkins mining those numbers. But Neil, Cincinnati, it better news than maybe some of us anticipated with the Bearcats hopefully getting some guys back onto the court in the coming days. Jalen Haynes, obviously, there's been no major update on him. He's still doing non-contact drills in practice, and he remains out for the foreseeable future. Shanabayev, though, maybe, just maybe, with that ankle injury, he can come back rather soon. And Mustafa Cham listed officially as day-to-day. So, Neil, they kept Abayev out of the travel party to Arizona and to Houston because they didn't want the swelling to get affected or and increase the swelling or anything by putting him on multiple flights. So that makes a lot of sense there. And good news overall. I mean, these were murky injuries until this announcement by Wes Miller today. And maybe, just maybe, the Bearcats, probably not for West Virginia on Thursday, but possibly for the contest on Sunday, get close to a full team outside of having Jalen Haynes.
Yeah, Russ, and I think when you talk about it right now, and especially, I know everyone's been asking a lot of questions. Hey, what's going on with Jalen Haynes? I think it's safe to say you and I don't expect him to be back this season. We can just
Yeah, I mean, you and I said that, what, 4 weeks ago? It would be stunning if Jalen Haynes plays this year. And the stun factor is going up and up each day he does not return to the floor before the end of the season.
Yeah, and I bring that up because I know there's been a lot of people in my mentions and whatnot. Hey, what's going on here? I would be shocked if he plays this season. I really would. But for Cincinnati, I mean, the injury bug just Russ, like I don't think we have seen injuries in Cincinnati in recent years with one or two big injuries, but I mean this is a Cincinnati team where everybody has been banged up, I feel like. And with how the season goes, Russ, how coincidental is it that Sincere Harris catches the flu and gets knocked out for 8 days? Essentially, like that's just the type of luck and luck of the draw that Cincinnati has been dealing with this season.
Yeah.
So,
To
and
be
I
fair,
mean,
though, Sincere Harris's absence didn't affect any results over
yeah,
the past 8 days.
yeah. And when you look down at it, I mean, Tyler McKinley playing banged up, Sean Abayev, it's at least it's a high ankle sprain. You don't like to see that, but there was also questions seeing him on the crutches and whatnot that we saw.
It's
We
not a
didn't get into
break or torn ligaments or anything. It's the best
yeah,
of
and
any world.
from how Wes Miller kind of explained it after that game, he was like, "Man, I'm heartbroken for it." And when he said that, we all were thinking it might be something long term, but it sounds like it's just a high ankle sprain. So that's a positive that there is hope for Sean Abayev to be back sooner rather than later. Probably not going to see him out there this week. We'll see what next week holds, but I truly don't expect him to play versus West Virginia and then heading into the weekend. But overall, Russ, I mean, this team has just been dealt with injuries. You heard Jizzle James come out and say about what Kirk Reese is playing through as well. So this team's banged up. They're trying to get these guys out there to where they're comfortable playing. But it was a positive and a good clarity note per se to see and hear that what these injuries actually are. So for Sincere Harris being out a week, he's expected back.
Yeah.
Should be good to go versus West Virginia. Tyler McKinley sounds like he is good to go, but if I had to imagine, it's probably going to be something similar to be a minutes restriction kind of thing.
He'll be limited. I mean, he's been limited all year, and I
Mhm.
would be surprised
Yeah,
if we see full bore smacking the glass, blocking shots, just 25, 30 minutes a game. Or not, I would be surprised if we see that from
yeah.
Tyler
Mhm.
McKinley this year. But he's given it his all. I mean, he's given it his all to be out there right now on that
And I mean,
unit.
and I think people do forget with Tyler, he the injury he suffered last year was the first injury of his career. But people do forget, like with those major knee injuries, people might not ever kind of expect to come back to the court in a way that Tyler McKinley did. I mean, he was fully practicing like 5 months after that. So,
Well, it could be it's
yeah,
18 months for those
yeah,
reconstructive knee
exactly.
surgeries. It's you
You're
can
looking
be
at
it's
18
a
to 20
yeah.
months per se before
Yeah.
you're fully back healthy. And I mean, Tyler was only
We've
18 when
shortened
he
the
had it.
timeline on being able to return to play for these injuries, but we haven't shortened, I think, the timeline on how quickly you can expect guys to be
Mhm.
back 100%.
And when you think about Tyler's injury in this sense, I mean, 18, still growing. Tyler's not done growing. I'm sure he's going to be closer to 7 foot by the time he is done growing. So for him to go through an injury at a prime age where he hits that growth spurt, it's never ideal either. So that could also maybe play a factor. But
That's a good
I
point.
I don't think we'll see him fully healthy this season. But when he is fully healthy, Russ, looking towards next year potentially, it could be a very fun time for Tyler McKinley to have that time, get fully healthy after this injury and whatnot, and come in and play a huge part for Cincinnati.
Plenty to look forward to ahead of the second round of action this season against West Virginia on Thursday at home inside Fifth Third Arena, 7 p.m. tip there, and then they are home against UCF on Sunday, home all week for the Bearcats before they go through a kind of 3 week stretch with no game or one game at Fifth Third Arena, the home contest against Utah. The trials and tribulations of the Big 12. We'll get to some of that Big 12 revenue injected into the Bearcats' coffers starting to happen as they become full-fledged Big 12 members for the 25-26 fiscal calendar year that we are in the middle of right now. And the Cincinnati Business Courier got their hands on the revenue numbers for the 24-25 fiscal year that ended last June. We'll dive into that after these messages on Bearcat Blitz, presented by FanDuel Sportsbook, where you can bet on the big game this coming Sunday. Drake May and the New England Patriots, my Patriots, baby, 125-1, trying to cash My longest odds future I've ever placed. What a moment it would be if Drake May can pull off this upset win as plus 4.5 point underdogs are the Patriots, plus 194 on the money line, and money line that's basically held static over the past 10 days or so. 8 days or so, minus 235 on the flip side in favor of the Seattle Seahawks on the money line. And they are, of course, 4.5 point favorites with a point total set at 45.5. Head to FanDuel Sportsbook today, where they currently have on Tuesday, February 3rd, last call for football, their latest 30% profit boost on select rushing markets in the big game. Plus, they have their $6 million touchdown jackpot promo going on. You score bonus bets if the player you attach the touchdown jackpot marker to scores the first or last touchdown. FanDuel Sportsbook, your place, your top spot to bet on the big game this coming Sunday. Quick timeout and then back at it right here on Bearcat Blitz. Bearcat Blitz wrapping up our back half of the show here with a backlog looking at the Cincinnati Bearcats athletics revenue for the 2024-2025 calendar year. Steve Watkins of Cincinnati Business Courier dove into the budget and noted a 23% revenue increase, Neil, all the way up to $118.5 million. It marks the first time in UC Athletics history they've had an operating revenue over $100 million. The expenses went up as well. 13% rise in expenses up to $119.3 million. And people will hear $800,000 deficit. Why are they operating at a deficit? That's pretty good, Neil, as we kind of look at the overarching number here first. To operate at an $800,000 deficit compared to the millions in some cases, hundreds of millions in debt that some of these other power conference athletic programs have. So far, so good for Cincinnati in their first couple years in the Big 12, Neil. And that's with $18 million in half share revenue coming from the Big 12 revenue sharing agreement. They were only on that half share timeline for the first 3 years of their tenure. And now I believe they are getting into, no, first 2 years of their tenure. And the third year is when they were able to get that full allotment, 36 million or more. It could end up being more when we see these financial numbers fully fleshed out sometime later on in 2026 for the 2025-26 school year ending this coming June. So obviously there's some differing timelines compared to what we're normally used to looking at, Neil, on a year-to-year calendar basis. But all in all, UC Athletics seems to be in a very healthy financial place entering the kind of dust settled era of NIL. Now that that dust is settled, the revenue sharing has begun. UC is going to be able to use a lot of that revenue sharing to pay athletes. The Big 12 revenue, according to UC Chief Operating Officer John Daniel, is going to go largely to paying athletes. All in all, Neil, this is really good news for Cincinnati Bearcats fans, Cincinnati Bearcats alumni, just knowing that they're not spending willy-nilly and blowing money all over the place in an environment where, yes, they aren't winning championships, Neil, but they aren't being egregiously flamboyant with the way that they're spending money on the way to not really posting any results in the Big 12 so far.
Yeah, absolutely, Russ. And when you look back at how this article came about, and when you look down, thinking about looking back, right? You mentioned the half share of the revenue share. People forget Cincinnati only got roughly, I believe it was $16 to $18 million of that half share in the first 2 years. I don't think people realize how big and how significant the next jump is going to be in year 3, right? So you look down, the conference stood at 18.2 million in fiscal years. That was with half the revenue share.
Right.
UC is now likely to be around 36 to 37 million potentially if some numbers fluctuate with all the revenue shares and whatnot. Think about that. That is massive in terms of where this is at right here in 25. If you're operating at a $800,000 deficit, which is very impressive for people who know athletics and what this kind of stuff is.
And the
To think
reason that's impressive, Neil, is because athletics is advertising. That's what
Mhm.
these schools view athletics as. You're advertising your brand to the nation. There's no other way besides a UC commercial that you pay to put on a TV station for you to get your brand out into people's homes across the country than a football game, which that Nebraska game was a big windfall for
Mhm.
the athletics department. I believe it was either like it's like
and I
6.5 million
and I
total
was
that
just
they
about to
brought
look at
in.
that. Yeah, so when
And you
they
have those numbers, Neil. But the advertising aspect of this is why if you operate at a slight loss, that's still really good.
and I was just about to get to that Nebraska game. When you look back on it, Russ, reading this article, everybody knew Cincinnati was going to come out with a payday following that game. Now, a lot of fans weren't happy with it. Don't get me wrong. A lot of fans weren't happy with that move because you had to go basically give up a home game to go in Nebraska. And you and I actually talked about it on this show multiple times heading into the season when that game got moved. It was a win-win for Cincinnati. Even though you did not win that game, it was a win in terms of the athletics department. Like people criticized John Cunningham for moving this game from Clifton to Arrowhead Stadium, and it was the complete opposite of a loss for Cincinnati. It was a huge win financially because you look down, it says UC received north of $6 million guaranteed, and they did have to pay 1.5 million that to Nebraska as the expense for moving it. But still, you come away with 4.5 to 4.8 million dollars in your pocket out of that. Yes, you give up a home game where you know your fans are going to be in there getting rowdy and whatnot.
Yeah, I wonder
But
how much a home game revenue compares to what that number was. I'd be interested to hear that.
yeah, and when you look down, I mean, you and I talked about it, Russ, and NIL with how college athletics is changing more and more by the minute, it seems. That $4.5 million that they pocketed from that deal was sure enough to go out there and make a significant difference in the athletics department. Because say they don't move that game, Russ, I don't know what they would have got paid at home for that game. Say they don't move it and they only get 39,000 fans in there. That's maybe half the crowd that was at that UC Nebraska game out there in Arrowhead. There was 74,000 fans in attendance there. And
And on
what's
top of
crazy,
and to touch on the advertising aspect of that, it's likely not a Thursday night game to
mm,
kick off the college football season with
and
that many eyeballs on it if it's at UC and never move.
what's crazy about that too, Russ, is
Maybe it
I
is, but
actually
who knows?
posted a picture on my Instagram story one day of what the crowd was like from the press box. And I had numerous players, I'm not going to say them by name, reach out and say, I was unaware that that's what the crowd looked like from the outside. They were
As in
baffled.
being so many Nebraska fans.
Yet, no, not even that, just knowing that that is what the stadium looked like as a full. They said it was loud, but the fact that it
I
was
gotcha.
jam-packed 75,000, like one of the players reached out, he goes, it's crazy to see people standing nearly a mile away from the stadium at the top, was what he pointed out in the picture. Like they were looking at the picture in depth, Russ, and they were like, wow, people are literally paying hundreds of dollars to sit 500 yards up top at the top of Arrowhead Stadium looking in, and you could barely see the game. He was like, man, that's so cool. But that's the experiences like that, what you're talking about here in this revenue share. I don't think you get 70,000 in Nippert Stadium ever. So
No.
even 40, like we have the best crowd in the country. Everybody knows that. But to see that kind of reaction from the fans, they're like, okay, maybe now I do see it and understand it from a player's aspect of why this game was moved, right? So, but $4.5 million, Russ, I mean, heck, if you're Texas Tech in this situation, that 4.5 million just got you your quarterback per se. So, I mean, for Cincinnati, any little bit you can get in terms of revenue helps you pay the players. And that's what this article even says. It says both figures will show up in the statements and help go directly towards NIL. That is huge. That is huge for Cincinnati moving forward. And it looks like the only negative to Russ and the downside from the decline in football, which was, I believe, 15.5 million in 2024 in ticket sales to 13.5 million this past year. Looks like only 1.5 million of that came from the football revenue and ticket sales. So it's not like it was a steep drop per se.
Right. And if you start winning, we know how the city reacts. They will be selling out those season ticket holdings very, very quickly. And one more note on this. The university did provide $13 million from their own kind of financial factors, from their own coffers, to the athletics department. But that is supposed to come down substantially with the additional half of Big 12 revenue coming their way moving forward this season. So they're in the right spot financially. They are primed to not only survive in this NIL world, but thrive financially. Now, can the coaches at the head of these top two programs figure out a way to push the right buttons and get into a championship scenario? It might be all she wrote on the basketball side of things. We'll see what happens over this next month. But football, we'll see. Murky path on football to getting there, but the path it's possible. If Indiana can do it, the Bearcats can. If Indiana can do it in the Big 12 with a comparable talent level, composite total talent rating on 24/7 Sports to Cincinnati, then the Bearcats can do it as well in a much easier league to win in the Big 12. For Neil Meyer, I'm Russ Heltman. This has been Bearcat Blitz. We'll talk to you all later in the week. Have a good one.
6, Ritter to the end zone, looking for Pierce. Did he hang on? Yes. Touchdown. A back as I've been around. Here he goes again. Busts free. Jerome Ford down the sideline. Foot race.